Timing matters so much. If you use the right tools at the right time, there's just so much you can do to combat jet lag. Welcome back to the Mike Method. I'm your host, Mike Desjardins. Today, I'm joined by Andrew Herr, CEO of FountBio and Flykitt, a human performance expert whose work has supported Navy SEALs, fighter pilots, pro sports teams, executives, and some of the world's top scientific institutions. Andrew has been twice honored as a mad scientist by the US Army, and his mission is to make elite health and performance support available to millions of people. In this conversation, Andrew walks us through the science of jet lag, why pressure changes, inflammation, oxidative stress, sleep timing, noise, food, and even your choice of aircraft all matter more than most of us realize, and how a decade of work with special operations and high performers led to the development of the Flykitt jet lag kit. We also get into the bigger leadership lesson underneath it all. How do you take sophisticated science, simplify the user experience, listen relentlessly to feedback, and build something people can actually use in the real world? If you travel for work, lead teams across time zones, or just want to feel better when you land, this one is high-packed with practical insight. If you're enjoying the podcast so far, the best way to help us continue to grow our audience is to hit that subscribe button. Let's dive in. Andrew, I really appreciate you making time to be on the podcast.
Mike, great to be here. Thanks so much for having me on.
I feel like this is a long time overdue. You and I met October of 2019 in Cabo in a late night, deep dive exploration session at an MMT conference, an organization that we belong to. And I remember you telling me that you dedicated your life to fixing jet lag. And I'm like, who does their graduate studies on this sort of thing? And I was so curious about your business, and you walked me through the history of it. So I kind of want to start there because I was mesmerized by our conversation and instantly became a customer and have been ever since, and won't travel without Flykitt. So I'd love to hear, what was where did you start with this whole concept of wanting to fix this?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I can say I've dedicated my life to it. I hope I have other goals as well. But yeah. So the story starts in sort of two places. One, I would say if I lived my life 10 times, I would have been a doctor, 5 of them. My dad's a doctor. I grew up around medicine. My mom's side of the family is military. And so I ended up going to school for a degree in science, technology, and national security. And then I got graduate degrees in biology and health physics, immunology, and national security policy. And somebody walks into the career center and they're like, we need someone who does biology, national security, and can write. And they're like, well, we know this guy, Andrew. So anyways, I get hired by the Pentagon to run studies on the future of human performance. And this started a 7-year stint of working in and out of the Pentagon, working on future of human performance for the military, everything from kind of research and development strategy all the way down to getting some people ready to deploy. And on the far end of that spectrum, one of the things I was doing was I got connected with a unit, a Navy SEAL unit, that did some very interesting long dive missions. And being under the water for long periods of time does a lot to your body. First of all, it is usually cold in the ocean. And for 30 minutes, whatever, people are playing in the ocean all the time. For an hour, that's one thing. But if you want to be there for 6 hours, now we're talking about even wearing a wetsuit, that's a lot. So just cold, but let alone all these other impacts of breathing pressurized gases or being underwater at pressure. And so I was trying to think through how to solve this. And I went to one of the Office of Naval Research, that's the Navy's basic research arm, one of their conferences. And I saw a presentation on the impact of pressure changes on inflammation. In my background, I did one of my master's degrees in immunology, so I have some background in that. It was really interesting and really, really phenomenal work that turned some other standard, how people understand things work on its head. Let's put a pin there.
Okay.
Fast forward. I was coaching clients on the side, mostly business executives who wanted to optimize their physiology. And this guy, David, was like, hey, Andrew, I fly to Asia, to Seoul, Korea, to close business deals from the East Coast to the US. We landed 4 p.m. There's a big dinner that night, and then want to negotiate at 7 a.m. the next morning. They're using jet lag as a negotiating tool. We're getting killed here. What should I do? I was like, cool, no problem. I'll put together a program for you. When are you leaving? He's like, Tuesday. I was like, great. It was Sunday. I was like, thanks, David. I'll get you something tomorrow. So that night, Sunday evening, I sat down and, I'd done plenty of work on circadian rhythms and sleep and performance under stress and even performance under sleep deprivation. If you're in the military, you have to perform when you're not sleeping as much. And I read a bunch of research on jet lag, and I caught a couple things that were like maybes in the research. I put together a plan, typed it up on a Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
There was no app at this point, obviously.
Yeah.
There weren't even like a custom Flykitt pack, so I give him like literally like some bottles of supplements and some very ugly blue light blocking glasses. These like literally meant for like people who work in industrial environments. It's like, cool, follow these instructions. I get an email from Seoul, Korea a couple of days later being like, Andrew, what did you do? I just slept 8 hours my first night. Like my partners are dying. I feel great. But like, you know, like you can't, maybe it was an accident, like things happen. So next time people I knew were traveling or clients were traveling, I was like, hey, you want to try this jet lag thing? It kept working. So fast forward, it turns out that pressure change in diving stuff that could cause inflammation cued me to the fact that when you go to altitude in a plane, sure, usually if you take off at sea level, you're going to about 8,000 feet relative in 15 minutes. It's like climbing an 8,000 foot mountain in 15 minutes. You're getting like a taste of decompression, a taste of altitude sickness. And over time, I figured out that this was a key piece of the jet lag puzzle. And then I like met some fighter pilots and I was like, hey, on what flight profile do you feel worse? And the worst when you come back down. And I was expecting them to say high G's because you got to like squeeze your body to get blood to your brain. And they're like, you know, you'd think it's high G's, but it's when we fly high altitude. And I was like, I knew it. And so then I gave them some stuff to try and they felt way better after those flights. There was like kind of a funny side story about that, about G tolerance and what supplements you don't want to give a fighter pilot, but nobody got hurt. So it is, long story short, I like was able to piece together over time that when you take off in a plane, it's causing inflammation and oxidative stress in the body. That then is enough to cause many of the symptoms we associate with jet lag. But most importantly, it's not the circadian rhythm stuff doesn't matter. It matters a lot. But when you block the inflammation, you can flip someone's circadian rhythm overnight and allow them to sleep at destination. And the key thing is there are like 7 or 8 different levers you can use. But if you pull them all at the right times and it's sort of like a symphony, you can take somebody and allow their body to do this without feeling terrible. And that's what I've tried to do with Flykitt. And then over time, building an algorithm that can custom time this to any set of flights anywhere in the world required somebody with a lot of knowledge of sleep and a lot of knowledge of AI. And I found that person. And this guy, Clayton, is just like one of the world's phenomenal talents in general. And he built the algorithm, and then we built the app and improved the product and then custom formulated our own supplements. And now here we are today, and it's 2026. Last year, tens of thousands of people used the product to fly around the world. So yeah, it's been a journey. There's like a lot of science, and then I had to turn to a business model. And like some people were like, hey man, just keep this niche and charge $1,000 a pop. And I was like, I don't know, that doesn't feel right. And some people were like, $99, that's expensive. Yeah, but like how much do you charge per day? You know, if you have a 10-day trip and you spend $5,000, that's $500 a day on your trips. It's been a lot of experimentation, and but the business has really grown over the last 3 years. And so that's the story.
Well, and what I love, you mentioned the app. What I love for listeners, if you're wondering about how this app works, so you literally open up the app and it's like, give me your flight number. So you just like BA237, and it's like, okay, what day are you leaving? May 20th. Okay, what day are you coming back? BA236 on June the 3rd. And so it knows the time of day. It's like, what time do you wake up in Vancouver? 7 a.m. or 6 a.m. What time do you go to bed? 10 p.m. Okay, what time do you want to wake up? And you're in London. Okay, well, put those times in. What time do you want to go to bed in London? Put those times in. And then it's like, how much do you weigh? Male or female, blah, 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 undisclosed. But it basically walks you through this thing. And then it's like, here you go. The kit comes and it's like, you got blues and reds and greens and gold supplements. And then you got the blue blocker glasses and these Firefly electrical stimulator, like Dr. Ho type things you put on your legs and socks, and a bunch of caffeine and sugar. And so it just says, okay, it's this time. You should put the blue blocker glasses on for 2 hours. You can either, watch a show or do whatever. Then you're going to take the melatonin magnesium thing, which is the blue thing, and you're going to fall asleep now or keep your eyes closed for 4 hours. You're going to wake up. Now you should eat. And it's just like, now you should take 2 packets of the instant coffee and some sugar, mix it up, shoot that back. And it just pings you. Your phone just pings you. Says, do this thing now. And it's so simple. And then, as you say, for like very little, like it's super inexpensive to be able to ensure that you get on the right time zone at the other end. And then when you come home, similarly, I'm so grateful because I can get back to work. I fall asleep at the right time. I wake up at the right time. And I've done this on like extreme time zone differences, like 11, 12-hour time zone differences, which should really just like completely shatter me for 2 weeks after I get back, and should be a struggle when I get there as well. And yeah, it's totally fine. It works.
Awesome. Yeah. And there's some like fun product things we had to think about in there, which are like, you could just ask someone their sleep cycle, like, okay, go to bed at 7 or wake up at 7, go to bed at 10. But of course, going to Berlin for a business meeting has a different than destination sleep schedule than going to Ibiza for partying until 4 a.m. And so it turns out you really need to be able to like tell somebody exactly what time they want to do. And going, if you start at, if you're doing like a 7 to 10 and you go from a 7 to 10, that's a one time change. But if like suddenly you're going to Europe and changing your time schedule, it could be like a way smaller time change or a way larger time change. It's all relative to when you go to sleep and wake. So it's been fun trying to nail the product experience, but also make it relatively simple. Like there are a lot more ways we could customize, but at the end of the day, then it becomes a super complex product and it drives people away. That's one of the like, like with designing any product, there's a push and pull to complexity and customization versus simplicity and ease of use.
I think you've really nailed the ease of use piece of it, because I mean, the app just sends you a notification, do this thing, which is like either, taking a supplement with some water. Like it's so simple to do the things that you're asking. Throw your blue blocker glasses on, which the new ones are really cool, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, they're better looking than the old ones for sure.
Yeah, they're stylish. They don't look industrial.
And we have clip-ons now for people with, prescription glasses.
Yeah. And I love that like all this just comes in a kit. So you just toss the kit in your bag. Like I just find it so simple, right? Like we've got a trip coming up in a month. I know exactly what we're doing on the trip, and it's an important trip for us as a family. And the last time we took one, I did the Flykitt and my wife and daughter decided not to. And they were struggling so much. And I'm like, okay, I feel great. And I want to go do a bunch of stuff, but my ladies are super sleepy. So I'm like, we're not doing that again. On this trip, we're all using the Flykits. I have, I'll get them reloaded and get all the things we need. And so, yeah, they've committed to doing that for our upcoming trip. So we can maximize, we're going away for 14 days to Europe, and I want to maximize the time we're there. And I got a busy work schedule when I get back. So I want to make sure I'm back and able to perform and wake up and go to sleep and all that kind of stuff. Now, if anybody's listening is like, it's a magic. It's like, I can't imagine, it must be perfect. It's like, I will say that your body still experiences travel. So, it'll get rid of the jet lag. But what my mistake was thinking, oh yeah, I've just gone away for 10 days on a different time zone. I'm going to come back and go full on into CrossFit and Peloton and like hammer the workouts. But I did that and I crashed because of course my body was still tired from the trip, not from jet lag, just from, we did a lot of stuff, drank more. I don't drink that much. So we drank a bunch of alcohol on the trip, and like my body and nervous system was just still recovering from a super active vacation. I wasn't just sitting on a beach. And that was a good learning for me, that I really needed to respect the fact that, my body also still needs some time to process the travel, not the jet lag.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And also like, I'm using all these physiological tools to get you back to where you need, but you're going to have less reserve than if you're just been home for a month.
Yeah.
And so, I probably need to cut into the reserve as long as you sleep and feel good. But if don't have a lot of buffer, that's okay.
Yes.
But like, if you then, go super hard at CrossFit, you might push me beyond where the reserve I had left for you. And
I figured out how to do that.
So I'm glad you guinea pigged that one out and don't need to do that anymore.
I just give it to people as a caveat now. Like I just say to them, like, hey, you can defeat this if you think you're going to perform like a rock star when you get home. Don't try. Like give yourself some grace to recover from your trip, but at least you'll be back to sleeping normally on a normal time schedule, and you'll recover from the trip so much faster, and then you can get back to full activity. But you got to honor that, you're tapping into your reserves.
Yeah, and now there's a Flykitt Junior for kids too. So really? It's gummies, so make it a little easier for kids too.
Okay, well I'll have to get that one for my daughter then for our upcoming adventure. That's so great. So this is, it's fascinating because there really isn't anything else I've seen on the market that is capable of doing what Flykitt can do. So as you get the feedback from customers, like, and about where, I guess both feedback, but also as you look forward to the evolution of Flykitt, like, where do you see what's next in just sort of this whole physiological space of travel and the effects of travel on our body? And like, what's your mind thinking about for the future?
Yeah, a couple different things. One, I'm thinking about how to try to make it easier to eat well and work out when you go out. And so we have some AI tools that are they're not fully integrated in the app, like the foodie tool you use on web, but like can help you find healthy food on the road.
Okay.
So I think that's important. The Fit product, you can go into a gym, and if you're not like a real gym rat, you can just take photos of the equipment and it'll make a workout for that equipment. So you kind of don't have to like guess what to do. But the other thing I'm thinking about are like, what other parts of travel can we manage? So for example, the last add-on or optional upgrade we added to our site was earplugs, because the amount of noise in a plane and the effect that has on your nervous system is really meaningful. And so it's not just like that's helpful for sleeping, but even just the ambient like roar on a plane really is powerful to your nervous system. I was just actually earlier today talking to a founder who works in the sound space, and they use sound for nervous system management. And one of their claims in their deck, I was helping them work on a fundraising deck. One of their claims was that sound is the fastest tool to manage your nervous system. And I thought that was a really interesting and accurate claim. And so if you think about the flip of that, if you're on a plane and it's really loud and it's like, not structured sound, that's going to have an immediate effect on your nervous system. So I think things like that. One thing that I have not done as deep a dive on that is also a big thing in a plane is EMF. I know I did a degree in health physics, which is radiation protection and the effects of radiation on the body. So I have quite a bit of scientific background in this general area. So I'm like, testing out some stuff with EMF now to see if it really matters and is there something we want to do with that. So I'm always testing new and different kinds of things. So for example, there are garments that turn your body heat into infrared and reflect it. Now, we know that high dose infrared can be really powerful for optimizing mitochondrial function. Is garments that can do it at low dose, is that enough to matter? So these are all the things I'm thinking about, different things we can add, different digital tools. Because on the Flykitt side, we did just launch, literally the first units will ship today. So when I say just, I mean literally. We're launching the Gen 4 Flykitt, which has a redesign. We've based on customer feedback, we're moving from blister packs to zip top sachets that should make it a little easier to get to the capsules and stuff. And we figured out a way, we've remodeled the kit a little bit to try to make it easier, but we know that the current formulation works super well. And so we're really proud of that. And so we don't want to mess with the formulation as much, but we do want to expand the access to the Flykitt Junior product, which is really still and always just been in beta. We have a vegan product for people who don't use fish-based omega-3s. So, like all kinds of different stuff to try to make it accessible to more people. And also, what about all these other factors on travel? And can we help you with those? That's where we are.
I love it. I won't travel without, I have AirPod Pro 3s. I won't go on a plane without those in my ears. And when I take them off, I am shocked by the volume of noise that the engines and the wind makes inside the cabin and I'm talking on like A350s and 787s, planes that are super quiet.
The best versions of.
And still it's like, oh, wow, these are still loud planes, right? Let alone like 737s or, 747s that are really quite loud, also depending where you are in the plane, right?
Sure. The other thing is I always get the fun of testing the next generation of the physiology stuff too. So if people are like, Andrew, do you use Flykitt? I'm like, yes, but I'm also taking different things to see if they help. So that's the other thing is I expect we're going to add like a gut booster option coming up soon for people whose gut gets off when they travel. So like different things like that I get to play with. Like I go on with like a Ziploc bag and I'm like, ooh, 2 of the blues and 1 of these. And like, let's try this capsule and let's just see if I feel better. And I will tell you, like, I've found things, I find things that way that then make it into the product.
Yeah, you bring up a good thing about gut health too, because I'm one of those people that my body like expands with gas internally. Like I literally bloat out when I get on a plane, and I've not seen anything I've been able to do yet to help deal with that. And it's just so long-term flights, I'm always like, why do I just feel pressure? So I looked it up and it's like, yep, they're just for certain people. That's just one of the reactions that you get.
Well, I've got something for you to try in your next trip that might help with that. That does seem to matter. By supporting the gut microbiome and supporting the lining of your gut during this trip, we do think it's possible to meaningfully impact that.
Okay, that's fantastic news. I love that you're trying out all these new things. I mean, it's interesting you bring up the radiation piece of it, the EMF, because the amount of solar radiation that we're exposed to at that height through the plane is not really ever talked about. I mean, people freak out about their iPhones and their AirPods having EMF, and I'm like, yeah, but are you been on a plane lately? Like, that's a thing, right? So I'm super curious to see what your research tells you about what might be possible and what the effects are, because you really have optimized. You've dealt with sound, you've dealt with physiology, you've dealt with the deep vein thrombosis issue with the stimulators, what are they called, fireflies?
Fireflies.
Fireflies for the legs and the compression socks, and like these things work. They actually do exactly what Flykitt says they'll do. And yeah, it's a remarkable difference at the other end of the trip on both sides of it to just feel better. Like just feel better after traveling, not feel worse.
Well, that's the goal. I mean, the mission is really to make it easy to feel good and stay healthy when you travel. And when you come home. And I think when you do that, that allows people to have more fun, do more for themselves, their family, whatever their mission is.
Yeah. And so what do people need to know about their bodies? Like when they decide they're going to go take a trip, what do they need to know about their bodies that is causing all of this? Like, what are the things that are getting out of whack that you're trying to solve for, so that, because maybe some of the people are listening to this want to geek out on the science of it. So I'm curious, like what are the things you're trying to solve for them?
Yeah. So the first thing I mentioned is pressure-induced effect. And so the first thing we're managing there is oxidative stress. So when you go to altitude, 1, cabin pressure drops, and 2, you're breathing about 26% less oxygen. Okay. And you can imagine your entire system is optimized to breathe, sea level, roughly oxygen. So, and you can adapt if you move to Denver. Denver's at about 5,000 foot relative versus 8,000, but you can adapt to these things, but your body is just not designed for it. And so you're getting oxidative stress in different ways. Your mitochondria is running on less oxygen, and so then it's going to run less efficiently. It's going to throw off free radicals. You're going to get effects in your microbiome, in your gut. It's well known that a hypoxic environment can cause those effects. It's well known. It's now demonstrated in studies. For example, you mentioned deep vein thrombosis. If you sit for 8 hours in a theater versus sitting in a hypobaric chamber for 8 hours with a flight profile, you get more blood clots in the flight profile group in the hypobaric chamber. And we know this because people have literally ran that study. It's not the sitting. Yeah. The sitting matters, but it requires the pressure change. And so it's this oxidative stress, which in some people will trigger inflammation, which is just sort of a well-known phenomenon. When you have damage from oxidative stress, your immune system is going to get activated. And then what is that causing? That's causing leakage of fluid into your legs. That's why your legs can swell up. People notice their shoes get tight or their ankles really swell. It can disrupt gut function properly. Whenever you have inflammation, you're going to get less proper like movement and peristalsis. And you get bloating, pain, irritation, and then brain fog. What we know about inflammation is that both the messengers the immune system creates, like cytokines, and the cells can cross the blood-brain barrier and affect. Actually, some of them, what they'll do is they'll turn down either energy production in the prefrontal cortex, that higher thinking part of your brain, or it'll actually increase the experience of tiredness. Like you basically notice you're more sensitive to the fact that you've been awake for a long time, and so then it makes you more tired. So there's all kinds of different mechanisms by which your immune system and this oxidative stress can affect you. And then you have the actual circadian disruption. And if you're going to Asia, which from East Coast of the US or Canada is, depending on the month of the year, is an 11, 12-hour time change, or even an 8-hour time change, or even a 5-hour time change. These are enough to desync your hormonal rhythms and your metabolic rhythms. And there are circadian clocks in every cell in your body. We have this sort of major systemic one run by the suprachiasmatic nucleus in your brain called the SCN, and that's like the melatonin rhythms. But we have these all throughout our body. And so there's a challenge. Let's say you fly to Asia from Vancouver. The challenge is if you sleep for 8 hours and you land in Asia, you're going to wake up at like 4 p.m. and you're not going to bed that night. And so you actually have to intentionally get less sleep. It turns out the optimal sleep length on a flight to Asia is about 3 hours, because that wakes you up typically around 11 or 12 p.m., 11 a.m. or 12 p.m. And then you've just got to make it to your bedtime and safely. So what you want to do is you want to optimize between the pain of not sleeping and needing to be tired when you want to go to sleep.
Right.
And so now physiologically, though, the cool thing is I can manage that for a short period of time. I say short period of time because people are like, wait, can you make me not need to sleep forever? And the answer is, that's not how that works. But for example, some of the ingredients in Flykitt, like the omega-3 fatty acids that we do at a 1-to-1 ratio of EPA to DHA in a very high dose, those are very highly purified. Those actually, for a short period of time, prevent some of the first order effects, inflammation, and other things of not getting enough sleep. So now we're combining, you get less sleep, so you're going to be tired to go to bed that night, with blocking some of the negative effects so you don't feel so bad. And those are kind of the push-pull things that we're doing, along with, wait a second, you said you give you sugar. Isn't sugar bad for you? Well, it turns out insulin, which is released when you consume carbohydrates or sugar, is a signal to reset circadian clocks. So now I'm using that sugar as a tool, and then I'm giving you an anti-inflammatory supplement protocol an hour later to block negative effects of it. So I use it, I get the effect, and then I block the negative effects. And so again, it's all about coordinating all these different challenges as best as possible as a symphony. And the cool thing is we've tried to layer so many of the right tools here that some people are like, do I have to do everything perfectly? And the answer is no. I need you to do it about 80, 85%. And you'll feel great. So then people are like, so why don't you just tell me to do 80, 85%? And the answer is because then you'll do 60% and you'll feel terrible. Human psychology enters the building. Anyway, so those are some of the physiological things going on. I didn't talk about all the ingredients. There are supplements that can lower melatonin levels. There's melatonin that can raise it. So there's all kinds of sort of push and pull dynamics we're using. And if you use them all at the right time, and which is another point, like timing matters so much. But if you use things at the right time, there's just so much you can do.
Before we hit record, we were kind of laughing about the fact that the original version, I guess you were in beta when I first tried it out, was you sent me a PDF where you literally handwritten out the schedule for me of what I needed to take and when. And then when the app showed up, I'm like, this thing is awesome. It just, I don't have to even remember anything. It just, my phone just dings and tells me exactly what to take. I love that you moved from the packets to the zippable sachets. I did that with Ziploc bags. I just popped all the blister packs into Ziploc
So
bags.
we've the newest version, which is, like I said, launching today, will hopefully be more user friendly. Like I listen to feedback from people and we want to make it a great experience.
Well, it already is. And I love that you're still listening and still improving the experience, because it is very simple to use. So what else do we need to talk about? Like, what else do we need to talk about in the realms of Flykitt and our bio?
I mean, here's a couple things that are great tips for people. You already mentioned this obliquely when we talked about noise, but if you can fly on a 787, it pressurizes to 5,000 feet versus 8,000 feet in other planes. A 787 or an A350. The 787 is the best aircraft for health in the fleet. Why? Two reasons. One is the pressurization, and two is it is the only major jet that isn't using bleed air. So bleed air, the concept, when you bring in air through an engine, a high bypass turbofan, they're diverting some of the air that comes in the engine into the cabin. But the problem is you can occasionally get stuff in the cabin from the engine you do not want in there.
Right.
And there are documented cases of like engine oil burn that gets in, things like that. And some of these are extremely toxic chemicals. And so 787 doesn't use bleed air, which is a really cool feature. But my choice is always going to be, number one, I fly a 787. Number two, I fly an A350. So I think that's the answer. And then what flights do you want to fly? So the average answer is you want your plane to land ideally a few hours after you want to be waking up at that destination. So if you're going to be waking up at 7 a.m. in London, you don't want to take the flight if you can that gets in at 6 a.m. Right. If you can get on the flight that lands at 10 a.m., that's going to be optimal because it's going to allow me to shift your sleep a little bit so you don't have to stay awake as long that day so I can land you into bed optimally. Now, flights to Asia are usually fine because they usually land in the afternoon anyways, but that's a heuristic, is if you can land on a flight or take a flight that lands a few hours, 2 hours is better than 1 hour is better than 0 hours. That's your heuristic for the flight that's going to allow you to have the least jet lag.
So 2 hours after you would normally want to wake up in the...
2 or 3 hours. 3 hours is like ideal. Okay. 2 hours is better than 1 hour is better than 0 hours is better than landing before you normally want to wake up at your destination.
Okay. So I want to wake up at 7 a.m. in London. I want to try to, if I can, land at 10 a.m. in London.
That's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. That's interesting. I didn't know that. That's a great tip to understand how much that's important in terms of when you land.
And even if you're not using Flykitt, that will help you anyways because of the way you'll structure your sleep on the flight. Will be helpful anyways.
The two planes you reference are my two favorite planes in that order.
Yeah. And it's because they're made of ceramic, so that allows them. The reason they don't want to pressurize flights too much is because the pressure depressure cycle. Apparently can fatigue the metal. And so it's not as big an issue for ceramics, is my understanding.
Yeah. And apparently this is just a crazy side note, but I think it's the wings of the 787 are flexible enough that they could actually bend and touch without actually doing any damage to the wings themselves. It's the only plane that could actually have its wings touch because they move. The 787's wings actually are really quite flexible in flight. They change their shape. Whereas most planes, the wings stay relatively rigid. The 787s actually change shape because of this composite that they're made of.
Wow. I mean, what marvels of engineering. I mean, I know we complain about planes, but we're literally on Wi-Fi in the middle of the sky going 600 miles an hour. And the wings are bending because it turns out that if you do that, you save 3.2% fuel economy. The engineering here is really cool. And I'm really optimistic. There's this new supersonic airliner coming from Boom.
Yeah.
Hopefully it comes someday. I've been talking to that team about, what they can do for health in the cabin. And that company is a Flykitt using company. And the CEO, Blake, has been a big supporter. And so, we're talking about hey, can you do it without bleed air? Can you do these things? So that'd be cool.
Boom is I mean, the Concorde's been gone for so long, and it was such a marvel of engineering to have it all mothballed. It'd be pretty exciting to get to see Boom actually hit its targets and get those planes going because it's a significant travel time difference between major cities around the world.
Yeah, for sure. Although the problem is it'll make jet lag worse for some trips because if you think about it, the challenge of Vancouver, Toronto, red eye is that you don't have enough time to sleep.
Yeah.
So if you get there shorter, I mean, obviously the one solution is you'll just go during the day, but there are some weird artifacts, whereas if you do it smartly, and obviously smartly to me means using Flykitt, but you can actually have less jet lag. It can be easier on your body to go to Asia than it is to Europe if you're on the East Coast, for example. So there's all these fascinating things that once you know how to turn off some of the inflammation and flip your circadian rhythm, they're actually counterintuitive effects. Sometimes that 12-hour trip to Asia is easier because 12 time zone change because you have so much time to play with sleep on the flight.
Right, which you don't on the shorter flights. You're just not going to sleep that long. I find the interesting one too is the meal timing. So the flights where you can get where you don't have to where you can actually time your meals better seems to help as well because of course Flykitt's pinging to say, hey, now's your window when you should probably eat.
Yeah, our goal, of course, we need a big integration, but our goal is to someday have one of the airlines who will just do it for you. Be like, oh, sir, you're on the Flykitt plan. Your meals will come out at the right times. And that would be super cool. So we'll keep working on it. We've done some mini partnerships with Delta. So we're working on some, we're talking to other airlines always about partnerships.
I'm guessing, I think I know the answer to this question, but I have to ask. So obviously flying is very dehydrating. And so I'm assuming along with Flykitt, drinking lots of water and not drinking alcohol are two other kind of tips for long haul travel.
100%. We want to drink plenty of water. I think the electrolyte thing is more individual than is generally appreciated. Okay. If you feel good taking electrolytes, some people, too much salt will cause inflammation in the body. Right. And other people feel good taking electrolytes. So I would say case by case.
Okay.
Like they can show that taking electrolytes causes you to pee out less water, but that might be just because of osmotic pressure from the sodium. So like, does that mean your body needed that? But so I think case by case electrolytes, everyone should drink a lot of water. Yeah. And for alcohol, it's a kind of a triple whammy. It ramps up your sympathetic nervous system, messes with your sleep, and can cause gut inflammation. And so we recommend you hold off on drinking until after your first full night of sleep in country. Now, people are like, but does that mean Flykitt doesn't help if I drink? The answer is no. It's going to still help a ton. Yeah. I just want you to feel as good as possible. So it's still going to help a ton. You were just going to feel even worse with the alcohol if you didn't use Flykitt.
And for anyone who's thinking like, you guys actually look at the planes you're flying on when you book your flights. It's like, it's actually really easy to do. So you can, with Google Flights or anything else, it'll tell you the flight times, but it also tells you the aircraft type. So you can really quickly check to see whether you're on one of these planes we talked about.
And by the way, like I still fly on other planes, especially domestically. Yeah. I don't obviously get a choice of the big planes. Yeah. But people always want to know, like, what are all the things I can do? Yeah. And then you can pick and choose the right ones for you. Yeah. So I'm going to give you all the things you can do, and then people can choose what's right for them.
Yeah, I think that's great. That's brilliant. So what else is on your mind outside of Flykitt right now that's kind of like filling up your brain that you're thinking about? I mean, I know you're always toying with the next thing. So
I've been working with a community that has a genetic disease called neurofibromatosis type 1 on bringing some of the kind of elite health optimization tools to see if they could help people in that community. And it's just super small. We're just starting. Like, there's some really promising signs. And it would be like, this is a community that just gets the traditional medical approach. And it's a condition that can range from mild to really severe. As long as, serendipity powers so much in life. You and I met at an event. So I met a woman at a totally different event, and she was explaining this, and her daughter has this condition, and it's not passed on from the parents. It's often genetic, like de novo mutation anyways, long story short, I think it might be possible that by bringing knowledge that is available in another area to a community that's just never been exposed to this, like this is stuff we do for pro athletes, there might be a way to really help people. And I have to be honest, I'm super excited about that.
Very cool, my friend. Well, I really appreciate you making time to be on the podcast. As I said, I've been a raving fan of Flykitt since we first met, and it won't travel without it. And, I really appreciate you taking the time to walk through all the work and time and energy you put in, research you put into figuring this all out. And the fact that you're still thinking about it, still trying to make it better, still trying to improve the quality of life for everybody that's traveling, especially in today's day and age when travel is more and more accessible to more people around the world. People are going to be affected by jet lag. It's that one thing that, we can't help that there are different time zones. There just are. And, the body does not react well to the switch unless you've got some sort of intervention. So yeah, thanks, my friend. I really appreciate this.
I appreciate it, Mike. Great to have you on. Great for you to have me on.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you, and keep doing the good work you're doing, man.